The dinner that changed everything, the air in La Lune Dorée was thick with the scent of truffle oil and ambition. Perched atop the 70th floor of the Sapphire Tower, the restaurant was a glittering sanctuary for the city's elite men who traded power like currency in women who wore their beauty like armor. Ethan Blake adjusted his cufflinks, the platinum glinting under the chandelier light. Across from him, Madison Taylor sipped champagne, her lips leaving a faint stain on the glass. She was everything he thought he wanted, youthful, dazzling, a trophy that validated his success. "This place is insane," Madison murmured, snapping. "A photo of the skyline? My followers are going to lose it." Ethan smirked. "Only the best for you." 6 months ago, he'd finalized his divorce from Clare. She had been too quiet, too content with her modest life of historical preservation and dusty blueprints. Madison was different. She adored his wealth, his status, the way his name opened doors. She made him feel like a king. Then he saw her Clare. His breath hitched. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her silhouette framed against the city. Lights. She wore a simple emerald dress, her dark hair swept into an elegant twist. She looked radiant. "Is that?" Madison's eyes widened. "Oh my God, that's your ex." Ethan's jaw tightened. Yes, Clare wasn't alone. A man sat across from Hurdle, silver-haired, his posture exuding quiet authority. They weren't speaking much, just sharing a comfortable silence. Then the man reached for Clare's hand. Something ugly twisted in Ethan's gut. Madison giggled. "Don't worry, babe. You definitely traded up." But Ethan wasn't listening. His entire world narrowed to that table. Then the impossible happened. The silver-haired man stood. He moved to Clare's side, lowering himself to one knee. The restaurant hushed. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The man Alexander Grant opened a velvet box. The diamond inside wasn't just a ring. It was a declaration. Clare's hands flew to her mouth. Tears glistened in her eyes. Then she nodded. The room erupted in applause. Madison gasped, filming Ethan. "That's Alexander Grant. He's proposing to your ex." Ethan didn't hear her. He was drowning in a truth he couldn't escape. He hadn't just lost Clare. He'd lost himself. The morning light filtered through Clare's apartment in District 1, soft and golden against the polished wooden floors. She sat at her small dining table, the weight of last night still pressing against her chest. On her left hand, the diamond caught the sunlight, scattering tiny rainbows across the table, engaged. The word felt foreign, exhilarating, terrifying. Her phone buzzed. A message from Alexander. "Good morning, my brilliant fiancé. Did you sleep at all?" "Still replaying the look on your face when you said yes." A smile tugged at her lips. She typed back, "I slept barely. Still processing that this isn't a dream." She set the phone down, exhaling slowly. Last night had been a whirlwind. Alexander's proposal, the applause, the way Ethan had stared at her from across the room. His expression frozen in something between disbelief and fury. Hadn't expected to see him there. And yet, seeing him hadn't hurt the way it once would have. It was like looking at a stranger. A memory flickered Ethan's voice, sharp with impatience. "Clare, be realistic. Your little restoration projects are a hobby, not a career." She clenched her fingers around her coffee cup. That had been the beginning of the end. Flashback. 2 years ago, their penthouse had been cold that night, all steel and glass, a showpiece rather than a home. Clare had cooked Ethan's favorite dish, being shake hoping to celebrate her latest victory, securing funding for the restoration of the old French courthouse. He arrived late, smelling of whiskey and another woman's perfume. "You're home," she said softly. "Long day," he muttered, loosening his tie. "I have news," she began, trying to keep the excitement from her voice. "The courthouse project, I got it. Full approval." Ethan barely glanced at her as he poured himself a drink. "That's nice, nice." The word landed like a slap. "It's a major restoration," she pressed. "It could redefine heritage, preservation in the city." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Clare, I'm exhausted. Can we talk about this later?" She had stood there, the weight of her achievement crumbling under his indifference. That was the moment she knew. Present. A knock at the door pulled her from the memory. Alexander stood in the hallway, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. Figured you might need this. She let him in, warmth spreading through her at the sight of him. He wasn't just handsome, he was present, his attention never wavering, as if every word she spoke mattered. You're thinking about him, Alexander said quietly, handing her the coffee. She didn't deny it. Seeing Ethan last night, it was strange. I thought it would hurt more. Alexander's thumb brushed over her engagement ring. You've moved on. That's not strange. That's strength. She leaned into him, breathing in the scent of sandalwood and certainty. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan was unraveling. Ethan's descent, his penthouse, felt like a tomb. Madison had left early, gushing to her friends about the proposal she'd witnessed. Ethan had barely slept, his mind replaying the scene on a loop. Clare's smile, the way her eyes had shone when Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger. She never looked at me like that. He poured himself a drink, the ice clinking violently. Against the glass, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Sir, the board meeting starts in an hour. He ignored it. Instead, he opened his laptop and typed, Alexander Grant scandal. The search results were infuriatingly clean. Philanthropist, visionary, widower, no skeletons. Ethan's fingers tightened around his glass. There had to be something. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. I need a favor, he said when the line connected. Dig up everything on Alexander Grant. Everything. Clare's resolve back at her apartment. Clare slipped into her work clothes, linen trousers, a soft blouse, her hair pulled into a loose knot. She had a site visit today, the first step in her newest project. Alexander watched her, amused. You're really going to work today? She smiled. Life doesn't stop for proposals. He caught her wrist as she moved past him, pulling her close. His kiss was slow, deliberate, a promise of more to come. When they parted, she laughed. That is how you distract me from work. Is it working? She kissed him again in answer. Ethan's obsession. By midday, Ethan had received the first report from his investigator. Alexander Grant's financials are clean. No legal disputes. No hidden mistresses. Only notable incident. A hostile takeover 15 years ago. Innovate Dynamics. Founder David Chen was forced out. Ethan's pulse quickened. Finally, he dialed. The investigator back. Find David Chen. I want to talk to him. This was his in. If he couldn't have Clare, he would make sure Alexander didn't either. Clare's realization at the construction site. Clare stood amidst scaffolding and dust, directing workers with quiet confidence. This was where she belonged, not in Ethan's shadow. Not as an afterthought, but here, building something. Her phone buzzed a message from her assistant. Ethan's been asking around about Alexander. She frowned. Of course he was, she typed. Back. Ignore it. He's digging for dirt that doesn't exist. But a small, uneasy knot formed in her stomach. Ethan wasn't the type to let go, and she knew, with cold certainty, that this wasn't over. Ethan sat in his office, the city lights bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across his desk. The private investigator's report lay open in front of him, pages of sterile facts about Alexander Grant's life, none of them useful. Philanthropist, visionary, widower. The words mocked him. His phone buzzed Madison again. Babe, you've been Mia all day. Are we still on for the gala tonight? He ignored it. Instead, he dialed the investigator. You're telling me there's nothing? No affairs? No shady deals? Pause. Only the Innovate Dynamics situation. But even that's clean. Legal takeover. Chen was compensated. Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. Find me David Chen. I want to hear his version. Madisons Awakening. Madison stood in front of her closet, holding up two dresses, one gold, one silver. The gala was in 2 hours, and Ethan hadn't answered any of her texts. She sighed, tossing both dresses onto the bed. Something was off. Ever since that night at the restaurant, he'd been distant, obsessive, scrolling through articles about Alexander Grant like a man possessed. Her phone lit up a notification from a gossip. blog. Billionaire Alexander Grant's secret past. Sources say his rise wasn't as clean as the media claims. Madison frowned. She knew Ethan's tactics. He was digging for dirt, and suddenly, she understood she wasn't his girlfriend. She was a prop, a shiny distraction while he obsessed over the woman he'd actually lost. Her reflection in the mirror looked different, no less like a trophy, more like a fool. Clare's unshaken resolve. Clare stood in Alexander's penthouse, her arms crossed as she watched the news segment flash across the screen. Rumors swirl about tech mogul Alexander Grant's controversial business past. Alexander muted the TV, his expression unreadable. "Ethan's doing," Clare said quietly. Alexander exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I expected this." She turned to him. "Will it hurt you?" He met her gaze. "No, because it's not true." She believed him, but Ethan wasn't done. Her phone buzzed an unknown number. "Ask your Fanchance about David Chen, then decide if you really know him." Her stomach twisted. Alexander saw her face. "What is it?" She handed him the phone, his jaw tightened. "I'll handle this." She grabbed his wrist. "No, we will." Ethan's last gambit. Ethan sat across from David Chen in a dimly lit cafe. The man was in his 50s, his face lined with years of quiet resentment. "You want the truth about Alexander Grant?" Chen said, his voice low. "He ruined me, took my company, left me with nothing." Ethan leaned forward. "Tell me everything." Chen's eyes flickered. "It was legal. Ruthless, but legal. I rebuilt, but it took years." Ethan's pulse raced. Finally, a crack in the perfect facade. "Would you be willing to speak publicly?" he pressed. Chen hesitated. Then, slowly, he nodded. Ethan smiled. This was it. The scandal that would tarnish Alexander and make Clare question everything. Madison's breaking point. Madison found Ethan at the gala, standing alone near the bar, his eyes fixed on his phone. "You're not even pretending to care about me tonight, are you?" she said, her voice sharper than she intended. He didn't look up. "Not now, Madison." She snatched the phone from his hand. The screen showed a draft email, a press release about Alexander Grant's dark past. Quoting David Chen, her stomach dropped. "You're really doing this?" She whispered. "You're trying to destroy her happiness because you can't stand that she moved on?" Ethan's eyes were cold. "Give me the phone." She held it tighter. "No, I'm done." His voice turned dangerous. "Madison." She dropped the phone onto the bar. Pathetic. Then she walked away. Clare's defiance the next morning. Clare sat across from Alexander in his study, David Chen's name burning between them. "Tell me," she said softly. Alexander didn't hesitate. 15 years ago, I bought Innovate Dynamics. It was aggressive. I was younger, hungrier. I didn't consider the human cost. She waited. "Later I realized my mistake," he continued. "I tracked Chen down, funded his new venture. We've been friends for a decade." Clare's shoulders relaxed. "Why didn't you tell me?" "'Cause it's not who I am anymore." He took her hand. "But if you need to hear it from him, I'll call him right now." She shook her head. "I don't." She trusted him, and that was the one thing Ethan would never understand. Ethan's downfall. Ethan's press release went live at noon. By 12:30, it had backfired. David Chen had issued his own statement. "Alexander Grant and I resolved our past long ago. He helped me rebuild. Whoever is peddling these lies is desperate." Ethan's phone exploded. Calls from investors, colleagues, even his own board. "What the hell are you doing?" his CFO demanded. "We have mergers pending, and you're starting a personal feud with Alexander Grant?" Ethan stared at his reflection in the darkened screen of his laptop. He had lost, not just Clare, but himself. The invitation arrived on thick cream cardstock. Embossed in gold, "Clare Bennett and Alexander Grant request the pleasure of your company." At their wedding celebration, Ethan stared at the words until they blurred. He wasn't invited, of course. "Yes." Had been slipped under his office door, anonymously, a taunt. a reminder of what he'd lost. His fingers tightened, crumpling the edge of the paper. She's really going through with it. The last resort, the private investigator's voice crackled. Through the phone, I found something. Not about Grant, about Clare. Ethan sat up straighter. What? Her latest project, the old opera house restoration? There's a discrepancy in the permits. Unapproved structural changes. If it goes public, her reputation tanks. A slow, cold smile spread across Ethan's face. This was better than digging up dirt on Alexander. This would hurt Clare directly. Leak it, he ordered. Clare's breaking point. The news broke at dawn. Heritage scandal. Architect Clare Bennett accused of illegal renovations. Clare's phone erupted. Reporters. Colleagues. The preservation board demanding answers. Alexander was already on the phone with his legal team when she walked into his study, her hands shaking. It's not true, she said, her voice raw. Every change was documented, approved. I know, Alexander cut in, his voice steady. But someone went to great lengths to make it look fraudulent. Their eyes met. Ethan Clare exhaled sharply. I'll handle this. It's the meeting she didn't call. She didn't warn him. She simply showed up at Ethan's office, her posture rigid, her gaze unflinching. His assistant tried to stop her. Clare brushed past her and threw open Ethan's door. He looked up, startled, then smug. Clare, to what do I owe thee enough? Her voice was ice. You planted those false reports. Leaned back in his chair, feigning innocence. I don't know what you're talking about. She slammed a folder onto his desk. This is every email between you and the investigator. Every payment, every lie. Ethan's smirk faded. She leaned forward, her palms flat on his desk. You have until sunset to retract the story. If you don't, I release this to the press. He opened the folder. Inside, dash photos. Him with Madison, him with the women before Madison. It's all taken during his marriage to Clare. His face drained of color. Clare straightened. You tried to ruin my career? I could ruin your life. For the first time, Ethan had nothing to say. The fallout. By evening, a retraction was issued. Correction. Opera house restoration fully approved. Sources confirmed documentation error. Clare stood on Alexander's balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in bruised purples and golds. He joined her, handing her a glass of wine. It's over. She took a slow sip. No, it's finally over. Ethan's endgame. Madison left him. His board forced him to step down as CEO. The invitations to galas and fundraisers dried up. And the final blow? A wedding announcement in the Times. Clare and Alexander, smiling, radiant, untouchable. Ethan sat alone in his penthouse. The silence pressing in around him. He had lost. Not just Clare, not just his reputation, but himself. Epilogue. 1 year. Later, a small envelope arrived at Clare's office. No return address. Inside, a single sentence, handwritten, you were right. I lost myself long before I lost you. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she tucked it into a drawer, turned back to her blueprints, and kept building. 6 months later, the grand reopening of the Saigon Opera House was the cultural event of the decade. The restored French colonial facade gleamed under spotlights, its intricate carvings painstakingly revived to their 19th century glory. Clare stood at the entrance in an emerald green dye, Alexander's hand resting at the small of her back as dignitaries and press swarmed around them. Across the square, unnoticed in the shadows, Ethan watched. He looked different than her. His once impeccable suit slightly rumpled, his hair longer. The arrogance in his posture had been replaced by something quieter, more human. A reporter shoved a microphone in Clare's face. Dr. Bennett, how does it feel to see this project vindicated after the scandal? Clare's smile never wavered. The truth always comes to light. Just like beautiful architecture, it just needs someone patient enough to restore it. Last letter. Later that night, Clare found an envelope slipped under her hotel room door. Inside, a key and a note. Unit 47B, Hanoi storage. You should have these. Alexander frowned when she showed him. You're not going alone. The storage unit was dusty and cramped. Inside, stacked neatly, were boxes labeled in Ethan's precise handwriting, Clare's thesis research. Clare's sketches university. Clare's letters mother. Her breath caught. These were her things, the pieces of herself she'd left behind in their divorce. The ones she thought he'd discarded. At the bottom of the last box lay a single photograph. Their wedding day. Ethan had scrawled across the back. I kept these. To punish you? Now I see they were punishing me. Alexander squeezed her shoulder silently. The Bridgethon stood on the long bean bridge at dawn, the rusted iron creaking underfoot. Below, the Red River churned, indifferent. He didn't hear Clare. Approach. You kept my mother's letters, she said. He didn't turn. She wrote to you every week, even when you didn't answer. A pause. The wind carried the scent of lotus blossoms from the riverbanks. Why now? Clare asked. For the first time, Ethan faced her. No smirk, no defenses. Just a man stripped bare. Because I finally realized, he said hoarsely, that love isn't about possession, it's about seeing someone. He gestured to the opera house, glowing in the distance. You were always this. I was just too blind to appreciate it. Clare studied him, the shadows under his eyes, the tremor in his hands. The Ethan she'd loved was still there, buried under years of greed and regret. She reached into her bag and handed him a small box. Inside, a scale model of the opera house. Perfect in every detail. Then see this, she said softly. Willed. Something new. Epilogue. 5 years later, the article in Architectural Digest was titled From Scandal to Salvation. The Abandoned Villas of Hugh. The photo showed crumbling imperial mansions transformed into community schools. Their restored beams framing laughing children at the bottom. The credits. Preservation team, led by Dr. Clare Grant. Funded by the Bennett Grant Foundation Project. Advisor Ethan Blake. In the last photo, Clare stood on a sunlit veranda, Alexander's arm around her waist, their toddler giggling in his arms. Ethan stood slightly apart, holding a blueprint, his smile tentative but real, not a villain. A victor, just a man who'd finally learned to build instead of break.